Good morning. It is Wednesday, the 16th of November, and we move to the book of the prophet Malachi, considered the one of the last prophets of the Old Testament before the approximately 400-year period before the coming of the prophet John, who appears, of course, in the New Testament, John the Baptist, but technically would be an Old Testament prophet. Malachi is writing into a particular context, and he has a particular message. He was probably a contemporary of Nehemiah, the Nehemiah who came post-exile to help re-establish and build the walls of Jerusalem, having left the employ of the Persian king in Babylon. And Malachi picks up on the context that the people have been waiting for a very long time. The prophetic words coming from God had been absolutely wonderful and beautiful about a restoration that God would do to his people, that they would be redeemed and restored to great relevance in the world, that their God would come and reclaim his temple. And for the people, this was interpreted as being something that quite literally would happen in their lifetime. And when it didn't, then their children thought, well, surely then it must happen in our lifetime. And when it didn't, it was the grandchildren who assumed it would happen in their lifetime. And there was this growing belief that God would come. And when he didn't come, they were confused and shocked and began to have doubts. They began to give up on that sharp focus of worship that they used to have. And they began, as Malachi says, sneer contemptuously at the altar. They began to just practice by rote the religious activities. It was simply following the mere form of that activity and religious practice, rather than noting that this pointed them to God himself. And so the people slipped into sin. And this was led largely by the priests themselves, who, whilst they felt called and commanded to serve the Lord, did so in a way which did not bring honor to God. And Malachi picks up on this, as do so many of the other Old Testament prophets. And he warns them that God will come. God has not forgotten about them. And the time delay is God's doing. It's not the people's doing. And there is a sense in which God is delaying, perhaps longer than normal, because of the sinfulness of the people, so they must repent and return to the Lord. But also the warning that when God comes, he would come, as Malachi says, like a refiner's fire or a launderer's soap, incredibly powerful and a cleansing agent, not what you would normally want to take into the shower with you, the launderer's soap, because it would probably eat away quite a lot of your skin and do great damage. But that God would come like this, and would come not only to punish the sinful, but he would start with his own people, hence the launderer's soap, cleaning the people, the refiner's fire, burning away any of the dross. And so Malachi warned the people that God would come, and they need to be patient, they need to be focused on him, but if they persist in remaining sinful and evil in the eyes of God, then God's coming and his punishment would begin with them. Now, for me, the learning that we can take from this is that we need to constantly look at ourselves and our relationship with the Lord. And so often time does drag on. And we often do think, when is the Lord coming? There's so much evil in the world. And we want the Lord to come, and we get caught up with these false prophecies that talk about the end of the world happening within the next few months or years. And when it doesn't happen, we too lose focus and become sinful. And so the words of the prophet Malachi are actually really quite relevant to you and me as well. What is your relationship with the Lord like? Are you remaining committed to Him and not worrying about the time? This delay, if it is a delay, is entirely in God's hands. Let God be God. But are we remaining as His people, His servants, obedient and worshipful of Him, and constantly focused on Him? So, folks, it's quite a somber warning again. Remember, we are in this build-up to the time of Advent, and so words that call us back to our relationship with the Lord. Have a wonderful day. We'll chat again tomorrow. God bless.